You are tuned into 1100 WSGI. This is Lee Marie with The Go Show, and we're so happy that you are joining us today. In studio, I have my beautiful Miss Terrie Shrum.
Good morning.
How you doing, Terrie?
I am just great. How about you?
Awesome. Thank you so much. We will be having another guest slipping in as well. Today is, what's the date today? The 9th?
The 9th.
All
yes,
right.
It is.
So, you know, the Go Show, we hope to be a source of information and inspiration. And then we also do some calendar items as well. So that's what we'll be doing today. And let's see, February 9th. So starting with a couple calendar items right off so I don't forget. Last week, we had on the show Pastor Joe Ray. I don't know how many of you saw him, but if you have not seen that broadcast, I highly recommend tuning into that.
Yes, it was very good.
Wasn't he awesome?
Yes.
He was so good that we asked him if he could come back also the first Wednesday of March. Mm-hmm. So he will be back. But he did tell us about a cool seminar that is coming up this Saturday, February 12th. So I did want to talk about that real quick because that is free and it is right here in White House. So the top of it says, "Do you need order in your life?"
Yes.
Who doesn't, right? So this is a free life planning goal setting workshop, and it's at the AIM Church, Saturday, February 12th, 8:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. with lunch. That is provided, and this is all free. The AIM Church is located at 3301 Highway 31 in White House, Tennessee. And let's see, the website is AIM church.com. So you can go to that website for more information for the seminar that is coming this Saturday. You know, I had another workshop scheduled and it got canceled. So I'm hoping to make it to this one because that sounds super cool.
It really does. His workshop's about setting goals and said, I just want to read this part.
Yes.
He's setting goals is an excellent way to provide you with direction and purpose. So I think that is true. Mm-hmm. I don't do very well at it, but it's true.
And then I do see that right there on your desk. That's one of Steve Hemphill's books, right?
Yes, it is. God's Power for Our Daily Battles. And there is a verse for each day in there, and I have been reading those, and it is just awesome.
Oh, my gosh.
A verse for each day.
Well, I know we usually do a devotional, so do you want to read today's for our devotional?
I do.
Okay, great.
And this one, everybody's going to know this one. So for February the 9th, tithing is a weapon. Malachi 3:8-10. You have robbed me in your offerings and the tenth of your crops. So a curse is on you because the whole nation has robbed me. Bring to the storehouse a full tenth of what you earn, so there will be food in my house. Test me in this, says the Lord all-powerful. I will open the windows of heaven for you and pour out all the blessings you need. Malachi 3:8-10.
Awesome. And I know that he goes over all of the weapons. Like how many did he say he's up to now, like in the 50s or
Yeah,
something?
lots of weapons.
So a lot of times we think that, you know, we think of spiritual warfare, we just think of praying, but he has many examples where, you know, Jesus pointed out, well, some things take more, you know, take prayer and action or prayer and fasting, prayer and touch, you know. A lot of different things.
And then it also has a prayer at the bottom of it. But I just want to say about tithing. I've been saved since 1978, and we didn't really know a lot about tithing for the first probably 10 years we were in church and saved and learning. That's what we was doing, learning. And I'm telling you, God doesn't need our money. It is a submission. It's obedience to Him. But if you think about tithing, when this is God's way of paying our electric bills at our churches and paying our pastors and our teachers and whatever we need for the church and to helping others. So when you pay your tithes, you're helping other people, and God has blessed us over what we could ever deserve. Mm-hmm. And we learned about tithing probably at Grace Baptist Church in Pleasant View. When we started going to church there, we had a pastor there that was preaching about tithing, and sometimes things just click, you know, right. And that just clicked with us. Mm-hmm. And I'll be the first one to tell you it works.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Very good. Thank you so much. Okay, so back to a couple other. So Steve Hemphill, he had his first Zoom study this past Monday. So he is having a Zoom study every first and third Monday. It's a free Zoom, but you do need to pre-register to get in. And then once you're on the roster, you can also watch the past Zooms. So, like I missed a little bit of Mondays. I got in there late. So if you're on the roster, you can go in and see those. But I highly recommend it. I mean, this Monday, there was a lot of stuff that I'd heard before because I've seen him like 12 times. But I still heard some stuff that I'd never heard. And then it's going to get really exciting too because, he will take questions. And so then you hear about a lot of other people's stories,
Right now, my Zoom camera, I don't know. If anybody knows anything about a Chromebook and my camera's black.
Oh, that's right. I remember I saw just the picture. Well, we'll deal with that later.
Yeah.
But yeah, so go to, do you have his website handy? Because I know it's Active Faith.
Wait a minute, I'll find it just a minute for you.
Okay. In the meantime, though, just know it's the first and third Monday. And you can also go to his Facebook page, and all the information is on the Steve Hemphill's Facebook page.
Active-faith.org.
Okay. Or it might be .com.
It might be
we'll
.com,
find that before the show is over.
Yeah,
Sorry
we'll
about that.
find
What else was I going to say about Steve? Okay, so yeah, his name is spelled SteveHemphill. So you can also search him and some of his videos on YouTube and other sites because he has some just amazing stories on spiritual warfare. And we are in the middle of a spiritual battle. And so we really need to know and learn about, what weapons are available to us and, how to fight this battle. So she's going to get the exact website for us.
Folks,
it's on that little flyer with the orange flyer with the lion on it. Mm-hmm. So anyway, also another thing coming up this Friday morning at 8 a.m., we have scheduled to come back here on the Go Show for a special edition Go Show, The Wild Doc. Now, the last 2 Fridays that he was scheduled to come, we had icy, terrible weather, accidents, and he could not make it to the last 2 Fridays. So this Friday looks a lot more clear. However, he is scheduled to be here. So, a last-minute blizzard may be flowing in to Springfield because Wild Doc is scheduled. No, hopefully it won't because we love to hear from him. And I can never hear Wild Doc enough. And those of you that have not seen his videos, you really need to. He's one of the smartest doctors I have ever heard. His real name is Dr. Dale Brown, and he is with Wild Roots Wellness Center in Clarksville. It's on Wilma Rudolph, Clarksville. The office number is 931-591-2010. Again, that's 931-591-2010. He is a chiropractor and a health coach, and he really knows the inside of your body like no one else. And we've been so impressed with him, and that's why we just try to have him on as much as we can. So tune in this Friday, 8 a.m. for a special edition Go Show with the Wild Doc. All right. And thank you so much for finding that. Miss Terrie found the website for Steve Hemphill. It is active-faith.org. So she was correct. Active-faith.org. So go to that website. Get signed up for the Zoom study on spiritual warfare with Steve Hemphill. All right. Excuse me. And let's see. So I got you through Friday and Saturday. So Friday we have Wild Doc. We also have, did we talk about the community Valentine dance over at Fluellen? I don't think we did. Not today, haven't we? Mm-mm. Okay, so this is another fun thing coming up this Friday night. They are having a mother-son, father-daughter community Valentine dance. And that is Friday night, February 11th. They're serving refreshments and free portraits will be taken. It's from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. at Fluellen Baptist Church, 3557 Fluellen Road in Springfield. So again, that's 3557 Fluellen Road in Springfield, Tennessee, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. this Friday night. So mother, son, father, daughter. And I thought it was just for the little kids, but you know what? I went to church there this Sunday and someone asked. And, my husband and his mom are such an adorable dance couple. I'm hoping that they go to this because, actually, that's where I met Bernie. It was on the dance floor like 25 years ago. She was in my original dance class. And so I've known her like 20 years longer than my husband. But anyways, they both dance. They're both fabulous dancers. And so maybe they'll be able to go to that. I don't know. And then, of course, I think this Sunday is what, the Super Bowl?
Absolutely is.
So go Rams. Yeah.
Y'all, I don't know a lot about it. If the Titans are playing, I'm for them.
Okay, there you go.
But other than that, I don't know a lot about the Super Bowl.
All right,
so.
no problem. Well, I'm rooting for the Rams, so there you go. All right.
Okay, then I will too. Then.
Oh, nice, good. See how easy that is? Kind of like asking for a vote.
Yeah, vote for the Rams.
And then, so that's Sunday, and then Monday is Valentine's Day. And what better place to take...
It's Monday, yeah.
Yeah. So what better place to take your Valentine than to the Tennessee Firearms Association Valentine Patriot Potluck? Matter of fact, do we have someone out there still that maybe wants to come in and discuss
We
that?
do.
Okay, Terrie's going to go out and look and see. I think we might have somebody here from the TFA. Let's see if he'll come in for a bit. So the Tennessee Firearms Association meets the second Monday of every month, and you can remember it because they are pro Second Amendment. So Second Amendment meets on the second Monday. All right, you can remember that. And we meet over at the American Legion in Greenbrier, which is so easy to find. It's right there on Memorial Boulevard. And we arrive at 6 o'clock. We do a Patriot Potluck at 6, and then at 6:30 we start our program. And I just so happen to have the handsome chairman of the Tennessee Firearms Association here in studio, Stephen Astier. So, Stephen, I'm so glad that you could join us today.
Well, thank you. I'm not the chairman of the
you're the co-chairman.
State party, but I'm the local
County
leader
yes,
for
thank you
Robertson
so
County.
much. That's right.
Local leader
county.
for Robertson County. John Harris is our state
Director.
head. He's a state director. And we have a lot of new bills that are coming up right now related to gun law in Tennessee. And we're still in a battle against the federal government who is trying to outlaw or ban, who has banned, the bump stock, calling it a machine gun. There's some dangerous things with that, and I'll talk about it in just a second. But we have a good time on the second Monday of every month. That's what we're talking about here. We always have dinner. We have great speakers, and we always discuss current gun laws and what changes are being made, either if we're in favor of it or if we're not, how it affects our daily lives, how it affects how we protect our families and our children, our hunting rights, things of that nature. So if you have any questions, you can always call me or call, but you can also go online at Tennessee Firearms Association. Has a great website. They publish everything that I would be telling you if you had a question.
Yeah, that website, actually, we should talk about that website a little bit more because that website
podcast.
Is amazing. You know, it has so many resources on there. I mean, we must be the best state for following this stuff because, you know, across at the top, it has all these tabs, all these resources. And John Harris is just an amazing job, you know, following everything, you know, so closely. Matter of fact, I think there is even in March coming up a lobby day that the TFA is doing with the GOA, Gun Owners of America. And so that is something that people can sign up to be a part of as well, to kind of show our force and just to, you know, let them know we're watching and, you know, we take our gun rights seriously.
That's right. We have a protection in the Tennessee State Constitution, and that allows us the right to possess firearms, both for hunting and sports and also for personal protection. That's important. We think that both the founders of the Tennessee State Constitution and the founders of the U.S. Constitution knew that it was important that a free people would arm themselves. We're arming ourselves against an authoritarian tyranny as well as personal protection from criminal activity in and around our homes and our neighborhoods and our schools. So anywhere where we think that we need protection with firearms is what our founders thought we would need, and put it in both the state and the federal constitution. Unfortunately, bureaucrats have tried to overstep their authority and put bans and restrictions on those basic rights. One currently today, and the dangerous thing about that is that we have three branches of government, as you've all learned in school, and we all learn that we have three branches of government. And why do we have three branches of government? Well, they balance out the power. The legislative branch of government writes the laws, as we all know, and those legislators are elected by the people. So, in effect, the people are in control of what the law says. They're in control of the laws that governing their actions and movements. So, legislation that allows for us to protect ourselves with handguns, firearms, allows us to use rifles and other guns like bows for hunting. These are the things that our legislators have written laws that allow us to have free access to all of these things. Okay? Well, the other branch of government, known as the executive branch, does not have the power to write or change laws, right? And we also have a judicial branch that enforces the law when we bring a dispute into the courtroom. What they do is they go back to the Constitution, and the judges then say, is this law constitutional? And if it isn't constitutional, then we know that our legislators actually made a mistake, and we have to rewrite the law according to what the Constitution allows. Well, we do have some laws on the books that violate our Second Amendment Constitution rights. One of them is the intent to go armed law in the state of Tennessee. That violates both the Second Amendment Constitution right from the U.S. Constitution and also the Tennessee state constitution, which says that people have a right to bear arms. So it is still against the law to go armed in the state of Tennessee with a firearm or a club. The code is written. It's a very old law. It's a code. It's a very old code, and it's still on the state books. And of course, Senator Terrie Roberts last week also talked to several of us and told us that we are trying to change that. He's he's trying to change that, and he's working hard to change that law. But it's a very old law, and getting an old law changed, sometimes it takes a lot of guys to get off and vote. We need to have that law changed because it conflicts directly with our state constitution, which says that we do have a right to bear arms, and we do have a right to possess a firearm and carry it with us for personal protection and for other sporting purposes as well. So, even though we have a permit, some people say, but I have a permit. Yes, you have a permit. The permit does allow you an exception to a criminal charge. However, this is backwards. It should be the other way around. It shouldn't be a criminal charge first, and then you prove your innocence by showing you have a permit. It just completely flies in the face of our constitutional rights. If you are a felon, convicted felon, it is against the law to possess a firearm. Right? It's also against the law to buy a firearm if you are a convicted felon. Okay? And that law exists for certain obvious reasons. It's also against the law to sell a firearm to somebody who has a criminal record. And so when you go to buy a gun, you have to go through a background check for the state of Tennessee. And that background check simply checks to see if you are a convicted felon and if you have the legal right to purchase a firearm. And if you don't, then they won't sell the firearm to you. This is important, right? Okay, so all those who can legally purchase a firearm should be able to carry a firearm without being, without living in fear that they're going to be arrested, taken to jail, and have their gun taken away from them, simply because there is still a code on the books that says it's against the law to go armed. So we want to reverse that. That's important. Secondly, on the federal level, we have a current case that's open right now, which is the bump stock ban. The bump stock ban is sort of it's a ridiculous, but it's a very dangerous ban because what it says that the federal bureaucracy, an agency of the federal government, the executive branch, is able to change the law on its own without a rewrite by the legislature. So this is important because we have three branches of government and they're separated. What happened was the wording of the definition of machine gun was changed by the executive branch under the Trump administration, unfortunately. So when they did that, they took an override track against the legislature, who already determined that it wasn't. So for the executive branch to make this change, they would have to go back to the legislature, have the laws rewritten, redefine what a machine gun is. And they haven't done that. So the definition of a machine gun has never changed. The bump stock is clearly not a machine gun. A 3-judge panel already decided that it wasn't, and it didn't meet that requirement. And so they denied it. But again, the bureaucracy from the Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms decided that it was and tried to change the wording and ban it anyway. So they banned the bump stock without regard to what the federal legislator has written in the law. So it is overreach by the executive government, the executive branch of the government. Again, we see overreach by that. We have a balance of power in this country to protect people from tyranny. And what we see in other countries and in third world countries and in what we would call socialist or communist countries, we often see dictatorships, autocrats, oligarchs who override the state constitutions of those countries, who overreach and really possess a tyrannous authority over the people. And they don't abide by constitutions. They don't abide by what the legislator, which was usually voted by the people. They don't abide by that at all. And so when we see that happening in this country, we say, wait a minute now. This happens in countries far off in the world, in very dark places where there's no regard to the protections of the Constitution for those people. But we see it happening in America today, over and over again. And this is just another example. And this is very scary because it's not a matter of what is a machine gun and what isn't a machine gun. That can be decided by the people. The people can figure out what a machine gun is, and they can have laws written accordingly. But when you have an executive branch of the government that extends way beyond their own power, we're reaching into the territory of tyranny here. This is something that the founding fathers of this country and the founding fathers of the state of Tennessee really fought against. This is why we had a war, a revolutionary war. We fought against the tyranny of the king. We didn't want an autocrat coming in and telling us, everything that we had to do. We wanted to rule ourselves and vote for our own laws and vote for our own leaders and find something that was sensible and worked for us. And we went to war over it. And, of course, we won. We won because God was on our side. God gave us these rights, and our Constitution is really just a reflection of what the God-given rights are. These are not rights given by government. These are rights that the government recognizes as rights given by God, by our Creator, which is what they were really about. This is about true freedom. And true freedom is that you are not ruled by a tyrannous entity, an authoritarian control, lockdown. We are not ruled by that. We are ruled by what makes sense to us and by what the freedoms that come naturally from our Creator have given us. And this is what our Constitution reflects. And so, when you see this happening in the executive branch of the government, you know that we are headed towards an authoritarian, tyrannous move by the federal government. And anytime this happens, we should look up and say, hey, this isn't about whether or not bump stock is a machine gun. This is about whether or not we will allow a federal government to overreach its own power and commit a tyrannous act against the people, completely ignoring the state constitutions, completely ignoring the U.S. Constitution. And those protections are in place for one reason and one reason only: to protect the people from tyranny. And this is what's at stake. And so when I say that, hey, it may not be a big deal because I'm not a criminal and I won't get in trouble if I carry a gun, because they'll find out that I'm not a criminal and they'll let me go and let me out of jail and they'll give me my gun back. But that's not the point. Mm-hmm. The point is I should have never been harassed to begin with. Mm-hmm. So we should not live in fear of a tyrannous authoritarian government.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
It's like they're looking at guns first and ignoring the basic facts that guns don't kill. Mm-hmm. It's people that do, and it has nothing to do with the gun. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of things that we want to talk about when it comes to guns and when it comes to gun violence and things of that nature. We can see that gun violence is very low on the line of death rate for gun violence. It's very low compared to everything else. However, you want to see that more people were killed with knives in any given year than are killed by guns. And of course, assault rifles, as they call assault rifles, which are not assault rifles, they're hunting rifles, and they're the most popular rifle as we know today. They are not a military grade weapon. This is not at all. If you look at what a military grade weapon is, you will see that there's a huge difference between a military grade weapon and what they call an assault rifle that the average hunter owns. So no, these are sporting rifles, and we've always used them. We've used them forever. So this is not a military grade weapon. Number one, those guns account for the smallest amount of killings that happen around the world. So now it's completely, all you're getting is lies from an authoritarian figure, from the executive branch of government. When they call a sporting rifle an assault rifle, that's actually a misnomer. And it's once again how the deception that comes from an authoritarian figure that wishes to take away your rights and take more authoritarian control over your life. And this is what we see happening all the time.
I was in London, England, probably been 7 years ago, and we was on one of the buses. We had a tour guide, and he knew that I was from the United States, and he said, well, y'all still have guns. Said, we don't have that problem over here. And I said, no, but you just had a guy whack somebody with a machete out in the middle of the street. I said, are you going to ban the machetes? So, yeah. I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be a gun to kill. So
that's right. In Great Britain, the knife violence went way up when they outlawed guns. When guns are outlawed, the knife violence went way up. People who are going to commit a crime with a weapon, they will find any weapon they can to commit that crime. It doesn't really matter. No. So when we talk about crime, we need to talk about it as a different issue altogether. It's an issue that doesn't have anything to do with the gun. It has a lot to do with how people live and what their values are.
Criminals don't go by the law.
That's right. They don't. So how is it that we can have people walking around who don't think that it's who don't pay attention to the laws or to the common courtesy of their fellow man? So I know that a lot of people walk around. We go to church, we go to school. We learn that there is a moral foundation for the way in which we live, and not everybody follows that all the time. And that's a problem. So we need to get back to looking at the issues, the core issue of why crime is such at an epidemic rate in some of the cities where you have the strictest gun laws. Mm-hmm. Where guns are completely banned, you have the most gun shootings. And I know that they say, pardon me.
Well, one thing, just to piggyback on what Terrie was saying as well, is that, criminals don't obey laws. So when you keep making all these laws that make it tougher, on law-abiding people to carry guns, it only makes it worse for that. And like when you said, Stephen, when you said that, these areas that have the toughest crime laws have really, tough gun laws have high crime laws. If a criminal doesn't know if you're armed or not, and there's a good chance that you are, guess what? They're going to be a lot less likely to, assault you or whatever. So we need our right to carry.
We know that violent crime is up. Violent crime in all around the country, violent crime has risen in the cities where you have the strictest gun laws. In New York City, Chicago, the south side of Chicago has shootings every single week. They are up. I think they're up 500%. I think the last number I saw, 500% increase in shootings in a city where they have the strictest gun laws, by the way. Mm-hmm. Here it is. I heard that violent crime and shootings are up 97% in New York City. Okay, people. Now, when you think about that, these shootings are being committed by people who do not have the legal right, who wouldn't have the legal right in any state in the union to possess a gun, because almost all of these people who are using guns to kill people are felons who should not have a gun to begin with. So all of these, now we have 200 million legal gun owners in America, probably more than that. at least 200 million legal gun owners in America, right? That means that all of these households have guns in them, more than one gun. If guns were the problem, we would have a lot more shootings
We would
in
know
a
it.
lot more states. So it's really only in the small areas where you have high rate of criminal activity, felons who are using guns illegally, acquiring guns, and then using that gun to commit a crime. So if guns were really the problem, you would see a bigger increase in this. In fact, what you would see is everywhere where there was a gun, which is basically 200 million homes in America, you would have a shooting. And that's not the case at all, because we don't have 200 million shootings a day, do we?
Right. That reminds me of this little thing that I saw. I think it was on Facebook, this little cartoon. And it said something like, there's this many gun owners, legal gun owners in America, and we have this many guns. If we were the problem, you would know it,
Well, absolutely.
And
Yeah.
New York is where our president just went and was talking about the guns. And
Which president? Are you talking about, Biden or Trump?
Biden
Okay.
was just in New York
Okay.
talking about the guns that were such a problem. And this is the same one that's wanting to give everybody a new crack pipe. We just heard that last night. And a lot of the reason for the gun violence, if they want to call it that, is because of the drugs. And they are just putting that on a pedestal.
Right.
Give them a new crack pipe. I couldn't even believe what I was hearing last night.
Yeah, it is crazy.
In the state of Tennessee, we have a couple of laws that are very important when it comes to background checks, and one of them is relates to the gun problem and drugs as well. If you have a history of drug use, you cannot buy a gun in the state of Tennessee. It is against the law. If you are a drug addict or known drug addict, if you have a drug problem, you are not legally able to possess or purchase a firearm in the state of Tennessee. This is important, and it comes up on the state background check, which is run by the state. It only costs $10, by the way. Some people don't like the fact that you have to pay, but there is some paperwork involved. When you go to purchase a gun in the state of Tennessee, they will do a background check. Now, you can buy more than one gun and get one background check, or you come in every day and buy a different gun and you get a background check every time. Every time you purchase a gun in the state of Tennessee, you must go through a state background check. That background check asks several questions, and one thing it does is it checks your record to make sure that you are not a felon or a drug addict or a drug abuser. It's important. We know that when people are on drugs, any kind of a drug really, but when people are on illegal drugs, often the unregulated drugs, their mind is not always at its sharpest. And we really don't want somebody possessing a gun whose mind is not at its sharpest, right? A gun is a tool. A sporting gun is a hunting device or a target pistol. A protection gun is a gun that's used for self-protection. Now, if we think about it, these are guns. They shoot bullets. Do we want somebody who's addicted to drugs to own a gun? No. And I would ask, since it is illegal to purchase a weapon, to purchase a gun, a firearm, if you are a known drug addict or you have a criminal record, why is it that Hunter Biden, the president's own son, was able to illegally buy a handgun as a convicted criminal, in a sense? He was a drug addict and he was convicted of several crimes. Okay, one reason why he was kicked out of the military. There's a lot here. So when we say these gun laws are already in place, and we have people, including the current president of the United States' own son, buying a handgun illegally, how come no one's talking about that? When people acquire handguns illegally and then use them in crimes, okay, they blame the gun. They don't blame the criminal. This is the most ridiculous thing on earth. And anybody who can see for themselves what's logic, and with some simple logic, is that it wasn't the gun that did it. It was the person behind the gun.
That's absolutely true. Now, we have gone through that. We know that. We had someone come in our business and kill 2 people and shoot another one. It wasn't the gun. It was the person possessing the gun. I mean, we could have gotten all up in arms about that, and it was a terrible, terrible day, but it was not the gun. It was this man that came in with the gun and done that. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And, we've been through that, so.
That's right. That's right. When you have a mentally unstable person, one of the background check points is that has a person ever been incarcerated or held because of a mental problem, a mental deficiency? In some sense, were they ever treated for mental illness? Now, this is a question on a background check, and the state of Tennessee checks to see if you were treated for mental illness. Now, they're going to assess that, and if you were, there's going to be a holdup on that gun purchase, and you probably will not be able to purchase a firearm in the state of Tennessee if you have a history of mental illness. Now, one of the reasons for that is exactly what Terrie just said. You have a guy who's mentally unstable, comes into her shop, shoots one of her family members, or several of her family members, kills one of them, injures others. And this of course, was a terrible, killed two of them.
Yes.
I didn't know that. Two of them were killed, of her own family members. Now, this is a person who has a history of mental disorder, who is in possession of a firearm. They shouldn't be in possession of a firearm. They killed two of her family members. It's terrible. The state background check filters that out. You cannot purchase a firearm if you have a history of mental illness. This is another law already on the books. We've already covered it. And it's unfortunate when people do acquire handguns illegally or any firearm illegally and use them in a crime. It is unfortunate, and we're talking about that. But one thing that's also unfortunate is this, and this is as simple and it's almost a joke when it comes down to this. What if you woke up one morning and the sheriff, our good friend Sheriff Mike Van Dyke, he was outside your house with a tow truck towing away your truck. And you say, "Sheriff, why are you towing away my truck?" And he said, "Because your neighbor got drunk last night and drove his truck over into the city, and he drove over a mailbox and destroyed it. So now we're taking away all the trucks." Does that make any sense?
No.
It doesn't make any sense. Was it the truck that did the driving over the mailbox and destroyed it? No. Is my truck in danger of driving over a mailbox by itself in my driveway? No. That doesn't make any sense. So just because your drunk neighbor commits a crime with his car, drunk driving, does not give the police the right to take away your truck. Right? This is the same logic being used by authoritarians in Washington right now. He would say just because somebody used a gun in a crime, now we're going to take away all the 200 million legal gun owners who are never going to commit a crime with that gun. And they don't have a history of committing a crime with the gun, but we're going to take away their gun anyway. Does that make any sense?
Mm-mm.
No, it doesn't. Not to me.
We've got to look at the criminals in this country. We've got to start looking at what really is the cause of the gun violence, as they want to call it.
All right, well, that is a good segue. I do need to cover a couple other calendar items here real quick. And so I do want to talk about Celebrate Recovery, because this is something that, is good for those that are trapped in, drug addiction and other issues. Celebrate Recovery meets Wednesdays, 6:30 p.m., and that is at the Springfield Baptist Church in the Chapel, 400 North Main Street in Springfield, Tennessee. And again, that's every Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. Now, Dig Deeper Fitness used to meet on Wednesdays, but now at Springfield Baptist, but now they're meeting on Mondays. And I did want to mention that next Wednesday, our special guest will actually be from Dig Deeper. Callie's going to be coming by to talk about that. So for those of you that don't know what Dig Deeper Fitness is, it is a ladies' fitness group that also does a Bible study. And so they are now meeting on Monday nights. And so Callie will be here to talk about it next week. So that'd be really great. That is on Wednesday the 16th. Thursday, February 17th, I saw that Judge Joel Perry is going to be doing a pizza party over at the Greenbrier Pizza Place, 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. So if you haven't met him yet, you can swing on by there and have some pizza with him. Also, I did find on Facebook, I found the GOA and TFA Day on the Hill. That is March 16th. So it says you can join the Gun Owners of America and Tennessee Firearms in Nashville, March 16th. Let's see. It says it's a lobby day event. Don't miss this opportunity to connect with fellow Second Amendment supporters and lawmakers combined. And so they'd like you to click on and register. They have a site on Facebook. So if you go to Joint GOA and TFA Lobby Day, you should be able to find it on Facebook. It is a free event. And the organizer's email is jo.staats@gunowners.org. So again, that is jo.staats@gunowners.org. And so it's going to be at the Cordell Hull building on 425 John Lewis Way in Nashville. So, write that down. It's important for us to, get together and show our force and to, just be educated about everything that's going on. And our lawmakers need to see who we are and that we are a force to contend with, right? And then, of course, this Monday is Valentine's Day. And so, Stephen, you were out there, but we told everybody, what's the perfect place to take your date but the TFA? Patriot potluck. So we told people, hey, let's kind of do a Valentine theme. So I better see some chocolate covered strawberries there. Even if 3 or 4 or 5 of you bring them, I think chocolate covered strawberries are the perfect Valentine potluck.
I'm taking my wife.
Of course, we'll have, we'll do something else as well for Valentine's Day, but on Valentine's Day itself, that is a second Monday. And, a lot of times we have to move meetings around. It confuses people. So we didn't want to move it this time. We just said, well, hey, let's just have a Valentine TFA party, right?
A Valentine TFA party, which we also call the Patriot Potluck Dinner, on the second Monday of every month, and we're always there. We have great speakers, and we always discuss the current and changing gun laws in America and the state of Tennessee.
And that is at the American Legion in Greenbrier. Everybody knows where that is, so I don't need to
That's
tell
on
you.
Memorial Boulevard in Greenbrier. It's down on the right.
Here we go. No, that doesn't. Oh, yeah. 2730 Highway 41 in Greenbrier. So, again, that's 2730 Highway 41 in Greenbrier. And speaking about the veterans, in March, we're going to be having a real big Vietnam Veterans Day celebration. And that is going to be at the Agent Orange Memorial right there on Memorial Boulevard. And, if you have not gotten your family member on that wall yet, if they're a Vietnam vet, they are eligible to be on that wall. It's a $150 charge, and the application is on their website. So I highly recommend you go to the orangeheartmedal.org website. There are applications not only to get your Vietnam veteran on that wall, but also if they were exposed to Agent Orange, you can get them a medal, and that there's no cost for that medal. And so both of those applications are there. I heard that if you can still get that application in, you might be able to get them on the next cenotaph that will be read, because actually all the names are going to be read on that wall on March 29th at their ceremony. So I hope that you guys will all go out. I know Stephen and I were really we were active with our church, and we got all of our Vietnam vets onto the wall, and we had a special little celebration for them, which was awesome. And so I encourage you, for your churches, you can take a donation and get your people on there. I'm just looking for the time here. Yes, Vietnam Veterans Day is March 29th. And that's going to be at noon is when that ceremony is going to be. And I know there's going to be several hundred people there, because there are people coming from all over for that. And by the way, to get on that wall, you do not have to be a Tennessean. There's plenty of people from out of state. We got our brother-in-law on that wall. And so, and that was a surprise for his 70th birthday. We had all of our siblings pitch in on that. So, if you have a family member or a neighbor or a church person, find out who those Vietnam vets are, because we need to honor them. Unfortunately, they're passing away right now at an alarming rate. Every day you can see how many are passing away. And, when they came back, they did not get the welcome home that they deserve. Quite the contrary. So we need to show our support to these soldiers, and what a better way than to get them honored on the Agent Orange Memorial Wall.
And that's March 29th at what time?
At noon.
Noon, okay.
Yes. So it's going to be a big community event. Matter of fact, nonprofits, I believe Ken is also letting some nonprofits come and put, tables up with information. So it can just be a real, big community event. So if you're interested in putting up a table at that, you can get a hold of Ken Gamble, and his information is all on that website there. Again, the website is orangeheartmedal.org. Okay, and Memorial Gardens is located at 4005 Memorial Boulevard in Springfield. It's just on the border of, Springfield and Greenbrier. All right.
Yes.
So let's all plan on going. I know you went with me to the last one.
I've been
to two of them, right?
Yes,
That's right.
And it's really awesome, and some of them are telling their stories, and I mean it's just really heart. You just it pulls at your heartstrings to watch them and to hear their stories.
Yeah, it was awesome. I'm so glad that you were able to come to both of those last ones because, yeah, I mean, talking about people paying it forward, you know, I mean, our soldiers, we could never ever repay them and show them the gratitude that they deserve.
No.
You know, that's why every chance that I get, I really try to, you know, to relate that to people because oftentimes, you know, they get forgotten. And so many of the young kids today, we need, especially like if you have like a homeschool group or whatever, you know, bring them out. I know we had a homeschool group that came that last time, and it was great because, you know, they got to see in person, you know, these are the soldiers. This is why we have what we have in America. And so, you know, get those.
We get very complacent, and we don't realize what sacrifices they have given, their families have given, their wives, their children.
Exactly. Well, speaking about showing love, since this is February, I asked Miss Terrie Shrum to look up some love scriptures for us because we need to be, you know, we are here for a couple reasons, right, on earth, to love God and to love people. And so what better month to really just dig in and show some love to our fellow man, to our families. So what do you got for me, Terrie?
Well, I looked up and it says, what does God's word have to say about love? Well, 1 Corinthians 13:4-5, love is patient, love is kind, it does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud. It does not dishonor others, it's not self-seeking, it's not easily angered, it keeps no record of wrongs. Song of Solomon 8:7, many waters cannot quench love, rivers cannot wash it away. So also, what does God's word say about loving your friends? John 15:12-15, my command is this, love each other as I've loved you. Greater love had no one than this, than to lay down one's life for one's friends. You are my friends if you do what I command. And then there's one more, what God says about loving your children. God's word often compares a mother's love for her child to his love for his people. Take Isaiah 66:13, for example. As a mother comforts her child, so will I comfort you, and you will be comforted over Jerusalem. A mother's love is deep and comforting. God created the family, and children are a gift from him. And then for Valentine's, what does God say about loving your spouse? Genesis 2:24. Therefore a man shall leave his father and his mother, and hold fast to his wife, and they shall become one flesh. And then Romans 13:8 says, no one anything except to love each other, for the one who loves another has fulfilled the law. So there's something there about how to love everybody.
That's right.
So, yeah.
And if we do not have love, so yeah, we need to concentrate on that, how we can be loving our neighbors and loving our families. You know, so many times we just get caught up in the rat race, and, you know, we get focused on all these different things that we're doing, especially, I mean, a lot of us that volunteer, you know, outside the home, you have to make sure that you are loving your family, you know, more than you're loving the outside world. Sometimes we get wrapped up in doing so much for other organizations, and then we look and, you know, our families or our, you know, houses are getting neglected. So make sure that, you know, you prioritize correctly. Ask God, of course, for wisdom and discernment, because he says if you ask for it, you will get it. One way to, you know, set up those priorities is going to be this Saturday at this life planning goal setting workshop at the AIM Church. You know, that's perfect. It's 8:30 to 1:30 this Saturday at the AIM Church, 3301 Highway 31. We had Pastor Joe Ray on. If you didn't see that, please tune into that, because he was really amazing. And that is going to be an awesome workshop to just kind of make sure, you know, you have everything lined up, that you're working on what you need to work on. And of course, we're turning to God for that information, you know, in order to get our priorities straight. All right. What else? Anything else on our love topic? We have about 7 minutes before our prayer.
Well, I actually found, I mean, there's lots of verses on love in the Bible. I think that's that's God's main ingredient to life is love. But I've found like 38 verses on love.
Good, good. You want to
So-
share any more?
Sure, I can share another one or two. But love your enemies. Boy, this one's a hard one, okay? But love your enemies, do good to them, and lend to them without expecting to get anything back. Then your reward will be great, and you will be children of the Most High because he is kind to the ungrateful and wicked. Luke 6:35. So that's kind of what Senator Kerry Roberts, when he was talking about, pray for your enemies. I wish I could remember the four. Do you remember the four things he said to pray for this country? It was,
When he talked on Saturday? Well, you
was
know what?
love your enemies, I know, was one of them. And I've been trying to remember the other three.
Well, I saw Deborah Blair and Edwina were both taking really good notes, so I bet you they have them down.
Oh, yeah.
And that was a great meeting this past Saturday at Purpose Life. Kerry Roberts did an amazing job.
He really did. And we need to invite people out to that also.
That's right. The local GOP meets the first Saturday of every month at 8:30 a.m. at the Purpose Life Church on Memorial Boulevard in Springfield. And again, they do a Patriot Potluck at 8:30 a.m.
Always good breakfast.
Oh, my gosh.
It's the best breakfast in Robertson County.
There is
I'm going
a
to tell you right now.
smorgasbord.
It really is. It is the best breakfast. And I've been to a lot of breakfasts around town.
Yeah.
This one is the one to come to because this one has some good country breakfast.
In Tennessee, we know how to eat.
That's right.
That's true. So that is 8:30, the first Saturday of every month. So we hope that you guys will join us. You'll see all of us there. And again, just a reminder, this Friday we do have a special edition Go Show. So I will be here with the Wild Doc. We're hoping that Pat Samler will be back to join us because she's the one that introduced me to the Wild Doc. And then I also am going to be filling in for U-Turn Laverne on February 17th, 18th, and 21. So not sure who those guests are. I'll have to look at her schedule, but I'm excited to get the honor of doing that because U-Turn Laverne is awesome and I love her show. If you don't know about her show, she is every Monday through Friday from 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. Same channel, WSGI 1100 a.m. And it's also on the WSGI app. So tune in and you can watch all of our past shows too. There's Wild Doc. I think he's been on 2 or 3 times now. And so you can look him up. Steven's been on before. We have a lot of great videos actually, and I heard that they're definitely better to watch on your computer because some phones have been scrambling the audios. So make sure if you do look them up, you can just search on YouTube or on Facebook for the Go Show with Lee Marie, and all the videos are there. But like I said, it's really best to watch them on a computer for some reason.
Some reason the iPhones work a little bit better than the Androids when you're watching these, when you're replaying them. But it always works well on a computer, regular computer, laptop or desktop computer than it does on the phone. But like I've heard, is that the iPhone will work better when you replay the audio on these. And also just know that if your Android is not playing the audio on our videos here at the station, that you can watch them on a computer and you will get that audio. There's nothing wrong with the actual recording. It is there. It's just that there's something about the way it's scripted, the way it's written on an Android phone, that the sound doesn't always come out clear.
That's right. All right, so it is 4 minutes, so it's time for our prayer.
Should I say something about the Wild Duck real quick?
Sure.
The Wild Doc. The Wild Doc, I'm just going to say, I was skeptical. I've always been skeptical of doctors, trying to sell me something or what have you. But the Wild Doc was the only person who could fix my problem. I had a specific type of an issue in my hands and my neck and my arms. And the Wild Doc was able to fix that in one day.
Yeah.
So just to let you know, there's some things that can be done. Even if you're a little bit skeptical, you get the right doctor and you can get that fixed.
That's a good point. I know, because a lot of people are still afraid of chiropractors because they, listen to some of the lies back there. We're like, oh, don't go to them. They're going to break your neck, or something. And so Stephen went. I saw him get his very first adjustment. And I could not believe how his pain, which he had said was the worst pain he's ever had, went away. So
yes.
It's amazing. Our nervous systems, run so much. They run our whole body. And so if you are out of whack and the right nutrients can't get to where they need to be, and you all of a sudden get straightened where everything can go where it's supposed to go, all the messages can go and everything, you're amazed. I mean, how fast.
Yes, it was instantly. And one thing that went along with it, not only was the pain gone, but I had the kind of energy again that I had when I was in my 20s. So I was able to, I didn't feel tired throughout the day like I would normally feel. So all that blockage was happening. It was blocking the nutrients. It was sapping my energy. It was killing my health. And it was causing me so much pain that, once that was removed, I was able to finally get back to living life like a healthy young person again.
And just to let you know, we're not doing a paid advertisement here for him. He's not getting paid.
No, not at all. I mean, I'm just saying what
testimonial.
happened to me and just testify. I mean, it's maybe not the Wild Doc. The Wild Doc did it for me. But when you just don't believe what a lot of people say, get a second opinion. If you've got a problem out there, you keep looking until you find the right answer. You keep looking until you find an answer that gets you right and gets you healthy again. Don't just believe what anybody tells you that you can't be fixed and it can't be done. I've seen miracles. I've seen people walk away in a miraculous recovery from so many different things because they stayed on it and they found the true cause of the problem. And it may take a while. You might go through 5 or 6 or 10 doctors, but you'll find one who will find the actual problem and fix it.
Right. So many times, people just want to, go for the symptom. What symptom is being caused instead of going to the actual root of the problem and curing that. Symptoms are obviously, oftentimes just something that there's a warning bell to tell you, oh, you're doing something wrong. That's why you have this pain. If you keep just masking the pain, it's not getting rid of what is causing the pain. And that's where the problem is.
It's one of the things that I believe for a long time. Well, working in the health industry for 12 years, many years ago, earlier when I was younger, that I found out that one of the things that we need to do as individuals is we need to take charge of our own health. We need to be the person in charge. Right. I think Hippocrates said the man who isn't his own physician is a fool. So, and this is the man that created the whole notion of doctoring. So in that sense, Hippocrates was correct. We need to take charge of our own health and stop laying down and letting other people dictate what our health is going to be. And if they're just going to give you a pill to cover up pain, that's the wrong road to go. It might help for a minute, but it's not going to help in the long run. In the long run, you need to find out what the problem is and get it fixed.
All right. Okay, well, it's time for our closing prayer. Did you want to start or stop? Or start or end?
I wanted to read the prayer that was on here about the one that about the tithing. I thought it was really good, but I'm just going to read this if that's okay.
Sure.
It says, Lord, many times in the past I've been stingy with my giving. I want to cling to all you have given me, Lord. Remind me that giving you 10% lifts the curse off of me and invites your blessings from above. Lord, that's what we want, your blessings from above. Thank you for challenging me to be faithful in this way. Help me to set the right example to others in all my future contributions and gain your favor and blessings. In Jesus' holy name, amen.
In Jesus' name, amen. Awesome. And let me just add a little bit to that. Heavenly Father, we thank you for today. We thank you for all of your blessings. And we just ask for your wisdom, your discernment, your perfect will, your perfect timing. Help us to be that love to other people. Show us those people. Put those people in our lives that you want us to love on. And there's so many hurting people out there, Heavenly Father. So I just ask right now that you just put your arms around them, that their hearts will be open to you. And if there's anybody there that does not know you yet, Heavenly Father, I just pray that today be the day of salvation, that they turn to you. Thank you, Heavenly Father, for your word, your Bible, your basic instruction before leaving earth. We love your word. We want to pour into it. We just ask for your perfect will in our lives. We love you. We praise you. In the mighty name of Jesus, amen.
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 All right. So, like I said, next week we are going to be having on Dig Deeper Fitness is going to be here. And this Friday, special edition Go Show with the Wild Doc. Make sure you tune in. And like I said, he wasn't able to come the last 2 times because of the weather. It's supposed to be good weather, but if a blizzard suddenly comes into town, we know it's Wild Doc's fault. So we'll see you then. You have been listening to 1100 WSGI. God bless.